to Katrina's Creations. This is the Wednesday edition, and today I'm doing something a little different that I haven't done for a while, and that is I came up with 10 questions that I'm going to ask and answer. And if you have a YouTube channel, consider yourself tagged. I will create a hashtag for that that will be down below. It will be hashtag 10 fiber questions. So if you would like to participate, please feel free. You consider yourself invited. Let's get started. What is your favorite thing to make? Out of all the different things like sweaters, cowls, my favorite is shawls. I love shawls. I have plenty of them, but I just think they're fun to make. So that is my favorite thing to make. What is my least favorite thing to make? Probably hats. I would say that because I don't wear them. I don't know. I can do them. It's not that I absolutely detest making hats, but if I had to pick a least favorite, it would be hats. What is my favorite craft? Knit or crochet or other craft? It would have to be knitting is my favorite of the two. Crochet is growing on me more and more, and I've gotten into the Tunisian crochet a little bit. I do spin. I do have a loom, although I don't use it that much, simply because it takes so long to warp the loom, and you waste a lot of yarn in the warping threads as well, you know, in the beginning and the end of the warp itself. So I would tend to say knitting, and the reason I would pick that over crochet is I've been doing it longer, so I'm very much more familiar with it. I can read the patterns a lot easier. Crochet, I still do better if I watch somebody else do it and then go from there. Reading a pattern I can do, but not as well. So I think I would pick knitting over crochet just because it's something I'm more comfortable with. Number 3, what is my favorite fiber? I think my favorite fiber would be merino superwash, merino wool. I like that. Well, it'd be a toss-up between that and alpaca, because I do like alpaca too, and spinning alpaca is wonderful. So yeah, it has nice long fibers and it's very easy to spin. But yeah, I would say a toss-up between alpaca and merino superwash. Number 6, what's my least favorite fiber? Crunchy acrylic. When I say crunchy, like Red Heart, some of the cheaper acrylics I don't enjoy. There's nice acrylics and then there's cheap acrylics, and I don't really care for the cheap acrylics. I just find that they're rough on my hands, and yeah, I just don't care for them. What is my favorite weight of yarn? My favorite weight, I can tell you what definitely is my least favorite weight, but my favorite weight would be a toss-up between fingering weight, DK, and worsted. Those 3. I used to like to knit lace weight a lot as I've gotten older. It's a little harder on the eyes. I don't find it as enjoyable to knit lace. I used to love to knit lace. And as I'm getting older, the worsted weight is a little more comfortable to, especially if I'm making a sweater, because it goes so much faster. My least favorite, though, would be bulky or the super bulky weight yarns, which is funny since the majority of the yarn that I'm taking to the craft fair is stuff made with bulkier weight yarn, because it does crochet up faster. Yeah, but I think it's because the thicker the yarn, the harder it is on my wrists, whether I'm knitting or crocheting. So my least favorite would be the bulky or super bulky. But my favorite would be fingering up to worsted. That little section right in there. Number 7. That was number 7. Yes, I'm on number 7. I will post a list of all of the questions down below in the description box, so that way you can get the questions if you want to do this question thing for your own YouTube channel. So number 7 is, what is my favorite size hook or needles? Needles, I would say between a 5 to an 8, a US 5 to an 8 are my favorites, which would be the needles that you use pretty much between fingering weight up through the worsted. And the hook size, it would be the hooks that would, and I don't know right off side, I would say like a 4, I tend to go 5 millimeters with the crochet hooks. I would say 5 up to maybe 4.5 to a 6, right in that, the same type of size I'd be using for the same type of favorite yarns. That would be those would be my favorite hook and needle sizes, would be the hooks and needles you would use for fingering weight up to worsted weight. My favorite yarn store, this is number 8, my favorite yarn store or company. I don't have like a favorite yarn store. I do like a lot of the things I see off of Expression Fiber Arts, but I've never bought any from there. So I don't really have a favorite yarn store. I do like when we go on vacation to go to local yarn shops and get something from dyers that are local to that area, but I haven't done that for a couple of years. So if I was to buy online, my favorite would be Lion Brand, because I think they run a lot of decent sales, and I guess some of it depends on the kind of yarn. If you're looking for acrylic yarns or man-made yarns, I would say Lion Brand, because they're cheap, but the quality is good. Their acrylic is not crunchy like Red Heart and whatever's, but anyway, or the cheaper brand yarns. So yeah, I haven't run into any yarn from Lion Brand that I have not liked. Now on the more luxurious side of the spectrum, ordering online, I would say Knit Picks, just because I have gotten alpaca there, and they do have they have more luxurious fibers, like some of the more natural fibers that are done superwash, or they look hand dyed. They might not be hand dyed, but they have a look of hand dye, like Hawthorne Speckled, which is through Knit Picks. I've used before, and it's a merino superwash, and it looks like it's hand dyed even though it isn't. So yeah, from the two sides, the cheap online store, I would say Lion Brand was my favorite. The more expensive online store, it would be Knit Picks. Number 9, my most frustrating project. Okay, this project lives in my tub of shame. For those of you who've been watching, you know that upstairs in the craft cave in the closet is a big Rubbermaid tub, and I call it the tub of shame because projects that have not worked out well, that's where they've gone to live. I have a project that has been up there, oh my goodness, 19 years, which is terrible, but it started out, I'm not even going to show you because it's up in the closet and I'm downstairs at this point, but it started out as hand spun. I used my spinning wheel. It was all hand spun wool. It's 100% wool. And I spun a huge amount of wool and decided I was going to knit a cape, to use as a winter coat, a cape. I remember knitting that while I was in the waiting room waiting for my granddaughter to be born, and she's 20 years old now. So I take it back, it's not 19 years old, it's 20 years old when I started knitting this to put it together. I eventually finished the whole thing and realized that it was undyed yarn, so it was kind of a French vanilla type of color, kind of a creamy white, and I thought, this is never going to stay this color. The minute I wear it, it's going to get dirty. So why not, now that it's knitted up, why don't I dye it? And so I decided I was going to dye it black, figuring it will never show any dirt or anything, because this was not superwash wool. It was 100% wool. So I thought, yeah, let's dye it. Well, I was fairly new with the knitting and the spinning process, and not really understanding what was going to happen with 100% wool. But you can guess, it started to felt. And some of the wool was from different types of sheep. It looked fine when it was undyed, But when I dyed it black, it did not come out black. Part of it came out chocolate brown, which would have been perfectly fine. I would have been great with brown. Some of it came out, I don't know how, but some of it came out lavender. Yeah, chocolate brown with lavender sprinkles through it. It didn't look well. And it felted. I mean, it was big before, so I was okay if it had felted, but it actually felted, and if you put it on, it's going to knock you on the ground because it weighs so much. It just puffed up the fibers. It is so dense. You could use it for hot pads for your oven. Seriously, I've thought about cutting it up and using it for that because it is so dense. You can't unravel it because I actually cut slits in it for my arms to go through. So yeah, you know, if I'm going to ruin it, I ruined it big time. So it's sitting up there, and just knowing how much time I put into it, I've never had the nerve to, I can't rip it apart. I've never had the nerve to cut it up. And the colors are so awful together. I mean, chocolate brown and lavender, it's like no one's going to want to wear it. It's not like I could cut it up, make it into something else. Years ago, I thought about doing that, making it into a vest for one of my grandkids. I was like, no, I wouldn't inflict that on them, and then they'd feel obligated to wear it. And it's ugly. It's just ugly. So that is my least, or not my least, well, it's my least favorite project, but it's also my most frustrating project to put all that work into, and then it's living in the tub of shame. I really need to just get rid of it and just be done with it. But yeah, anyway. So that is number 9. Number 10, something about myself. Okay. Crazy story, but I've been bit by a crocodile and lived to tell the story on my finger. I used to have, when I was a teenager, I had a pet crocodile. It was actually called a caiman. You could buy them in the pet stores then. He was about this long, and his name was Blivet. The funny thing is I named him after my mother's crocodile, because my mother, when she was a teenager, she had a horny toad, and she also had a little, I think it was a horny toad. I don't think it was a crocodile, maybe. It was a horny toad. And it was named Blivet. So I have no idea where she came up with the name Blivet. But anyway, it was Blivet, and that was the name of the crocodile. And crocodiles have 2 sets of very sharp teeth in their mouths. They also have 2 sets of eyelids so that they can go, they have the outer eyelid and they have an inner eyelid that when they go underwater, the outer eyelid can open, but their inner eyelid stays, it's almost like a shade type thing, so it protects their eyeball. They also don't see straight ahead. They only can see sideways, sort of like a rabbit. Yeah, and it had something on the side of its face. And so without thinking, I reached over, and they can be very quick. They're not a slow animal by any stretch of the imagination. I would take it outside in the yard, and it would literally, you know, that you always see them crawling. Well, they don't. I mean, they can crawl, but they arch up on all fours, you know, stand more, not upright, but they stretch their legs out so they're actually elevated, and they can go pretty fast. And they also make a noise. They kind of go, and see if I can, imitation of a crocodile. They kind of go, rah, 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 rah. That they make that kind of a noise. Anyway, they are also a very stinky pet because they live, like ours lived in an aquarium with water, and you had to change the water like every day or every other day because it literally would start stinking because they are doing everything in this water and it's not moving around or anything. Yeah, and they smell like a swamp all the time. Anyway, it had something in its eye, and I went to wipe it without thinking, and it turned around and latched on, I got onto my finger, which was like an electric jolt going through my finger. And I shook my finger to flick it off, because once their jaws come down, they can't release it as well. Alligators are the same way. They come down with a lot of pressure, but they can't lift it back up. And so I shook my finger to shake it off. He went flying across the room, and he didn't live a whole lot beyond that. I think he had some kind of spinal cord damage because I reacted and he went flying. But my brother said, you know, I said he died, or he bit me and died, and my brother, being the loving brother that he was, said he died because he bit me. Yeah. Anyway, the other interesting thing with crocodiles, and in the case of this one, it was too young to have been taken away from its mother or whatever it is that they do, because crocodiles have a flap in the back of their throat, so if they open their mouth underwater, the water doesn't rush in. There is a flap there. And so this alligator did not know how to eat. You had to feed it like ground beef or, you know, like bugs, things like that. You had to literally hold him by the back of the neck so he couldn't bite you, and then take the food and kind of push it down his throat with the back, like an eraser on the back of a pencil, so it would be soft, but you had to push it past that flap because he didn't know how to do that on his own. And that's kind of what led us to believe that maybe he was a little young to begin with. Yeah, because you had to hand feed the crocodile. Needless to say, he was not a cuddly pet, and it wasn't one that after getting bit like that I was really sad when he went away. But yeah, that's my crazy story, is I had a pet caiman, so which is part of the crocodile family, and their teeth are very sharp. So that is my 10 questions. Please feel free, like I said, to participate. I will put it out on Facebook and tag everybody, so, you know, feel free to participate. I'll be anxious to hear what everybody else's answers are too. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you on Saturday. Bye, everybody.